Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. Welcome to another exciting episode of the EntreMusician Podcast. This is the space where we concentrate on the mindset, the discipline, and the focus of the EntreMusician. Today's episode, absolutely no exception. In fact, today's episode is a very, 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 very special one. I have the pleasure of talking with Johnny Stevenson and Hamad Dada of SoundSafe.ai. Now, AI is everywhere, I know. It's everywhere, but you're going to learn some things that you didn't know about your music and your music career, and these brothers are going to explain it to us. Gentlemen, how you doing, fellas?
Good yourself.
Great, thank you, Jared.
Absolutely. For those who haven't met you off screen, who's Johnny and who's Hamad? Would you introduce yourself that way?
I'm Johnny Stevenson.
And I'm Hamad Dada.
It's so good to see you guys. Listen, you're going to have to talk to me like I'm 5 years old, okay? Don't be afraid. I'm going to ask you some questions because, again, everybody's heard everywhere this subject of AI crept in, now is overtaking everything. We know about intellectual property, metadata, copyright infringement, etc. But there's all kinds of new terms like deep fake. What does that mean to us as musicians? Can you kind of walk us down the path of how we got here and then how you provided the solution?
Definitely. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, I guess in general, we a lot of us don't know that we've used artificial intelligence for the last probably 25 years. We just don't know it. Now came to so far in development of technology where us everyday people can use it. And it's easier to use. So we fast forward to today, and about the last year and a half, we've seen a lot about this generative AI, music trained on artificial intelligence and replicating humans. A lot goes into it. We're seeing a lot of scarce problems on what are we going to do about generative AI, about training on the IP and likeness of us, or getting it scraped from the web and people using our sounds or vocals unauthorized. And it's not something I would be scared of, but we're in the very early stages of this technology, and it's very good to get educated right now and to understand what's going on, especially in music.
Let me ask this question. I'm sorry, Haddad. I'm sorry, Hamad. Forgive me.
No, pointing back to your question, when you say why the word deepfake, it all comes back to breaking down the word itself. You have the word deep and fake. As far back as we remember in the early days of the digital age, people have been, trying to use different methods to fake something in a picture or synthesize something in a sound. Now, with AI, it has gotten so complex. It's borrowed the word deep from deep learning. And this is why we're starting to see deep fake. I'm not exactly sure who coined the term and when, but understanding the word right now, since it's starting to resonate in a lot of different forums, whether it be in the workspace or at home or online, it's becoming more of a household term. And what we try to educate everybody on, it's literally a very, very sophisticated deception, a fake, but very, very deeply sophisticated.
That's very interesting because you actually answered the question I was going to ask because from my generation standpoint, it was copyright infringement. You have to do certain things to protect, quote unquote, your song because there was someone, perhaps the proverbial they, wanted to steal your song. And I thought, wow, with so many songs being uploaded to the streaming platforms on a daily basis, is, Harry just sitting in his basement waiting to steal or sample? So, does that still happen? But I guess if you're discussing deepfake to the level that you are, there are some real criminals out there who are trying to use this artificial intelligence to actually take your personal property.
Absolutely. And it's putting a dent into what market is out there for the creatives or even content producer, because it's starting to stem and spill over more than just recording artists. Right now, anybody can be a content producer online, and as much as they do audio, even down to podcasts such as yourself, that's intellectual property. And it propagates, it proliferates online, people use it, and eventually we're going to start seeing people that gain traction get cloned in a certain way, in a very cheap way, because hey, it's getting this guy views, I can just use that likeness and get some views myself. Now, who's making sure there's any type of regulation to monetize that, or whose attribution goes to where? That's where the narrative starts bubbling.
Yeah, I would say, Jer, if you want to take it back to early as the 80s to the 90s, sampling became a big issue when DJs started playing in clubs, sampling famous records. It became a normal. It became an industry thing, and then came hip hop. After the DJing boom, and hip hop beats started getting sampled from old records, and people were, copyright issues were becoming the biggest problems. Then fast forward today, again, like there's electronic dance music where they're sampling unknown amounts of drums, snares, coming from hip hop or any genre. And then the issue we see even more now is old songs getting sampled and not getting credited because of they don't have, these are artists, let's say like Do or Die, made it, they have songs, somebody flipped one of their vocals and put it on their beat. I know B-Lo or AK and B-Lo, and I know that they're not going to have $100,000 to go fight against this major corporation that made millions off of it, and they have more money to go fight them. It's a tug and pull. And again, it's not all negative. Some people have good intentions, and that's where we want to make sure it shows it, like whether it is good or it's bad.
And it's gotten a lot more complex. In the past, a sample might be a 2-bar loop. There's a lot more recognizable efforts to detect or match something. But we always knew the whole mantra of don't disclose the sample and things like that unless somebody detects it. And then if they don't reach out for publishing, licensing, and things like that, cool. That's going to get much more of a problem because of the amount of music being put out now, and with all the tools, it's democratized in a certain way that it's way too fast, and to have a team of people going out to listen or track or see what's similar or not. And honestly, they're starting to get witty, the creators. They're switching sounds, adding effects, sampling it to the point it's not discernible, but there's still a piece of music in there that gave it. That in itself can thin out completely the value of a content creator as a producer, as a writer, as a label, as a catalog owner. My example was at the root of certain pain points that I pulled with Johnny. We pulled managerial pain points, we pulled contractual pain points, but the main pain point always stemmed down to the root, the studio. All the work, all the soul gets poured in there, and then you go and you try to put it out there. Now you're really going on an honor system. If somebody decides or doesn't forget to credit, that's on a good day. So imagine all the people that are like, I won't credit you, or like, I'm going to sample you and make sure you can't even hear it. You know what? I'll take it, replay your notes with another instrument. You won't even know.
Yeah,
that's where it started stemming.
That's like the
root of the issue.
That's the root of it. I think that will take it back, and you could relate to that in the last 50 years of music.
Yeah.
Now with 100,000 plus songs released a day on streaming platforms, how are you're supposed to even navigate, through that? And we're, it's an early unknown kind of future in music. But again, people like us, people that are advocating a lot of these organizations putting acts like the No Fakes Act, the Human Artistry Campaign, the Elvis Act that passed in Nashville. There's a lot of these amazing organizations coming together to say, hey, we need some clear, view or roadmap or guardrails on what's good, what's legal and what's not. And that's where we think we had to do something about it. I've dealt with headaches. I started out being a music producer, turned musician, turned manager and marketer, and that was where I got my industry experience. And then Don's been a producer his whole life. And
we have a perfect balance of values and core values when it comes to where do you draw the line between empowering and regulating? Because AI really empowered people in the most beautiful way, especially in the record industry, especially in music creation. It is unprecedented, the amount of direct expression somebody has now and what you can flip and change. But on the other hand, not enough of that and too much regulation would hurt. But
Sure.
Too much regulation will also block that and create a sense of there's no point of even being on content in that. So we try to show our core value that yes, we do empower, open source. Just don't scrape people. Don't utilize something you don't have a license for, because it's just as bad as going to get somebody who's licensed, taking something and creating something else with it, as opposed to their argument where they say, oh, but it's just an influence of style and now it's transcendent through me. But not in that sense. It's a lot more digitized than you coming at it. The human factor kind of makes it your own. But when it's still AI, you are infringing at the base of it.
That's pretty amazing, man, because it's really interesting. Boy, you're triggering a lot of questions, so I'm gonna try. I remember though, Johnny brought up the '90s, and of course that goes back for me some time where sampling was an issue. And I do remember someone as famous as Chuck D, and I don't want to misquote him, but to paraphrase, when that whole litigation situation started, he said, man, you can't copyright no beat. And I thought, that's really interesting coming from a drummer's perspective. I mean, depending on the genre that you play, there are certain patterns. And then it was broken down to you can't copyright a snare drum because it's just a one single hit. However, there can be watermarks on that. From the studio standpoint, Hamad, to your credit, as you said, from the studio, where you're saying, okay, we took the time to really apply this type of reverb and delay to this snare to make it ours, and then someone lifts that sound, right, off. And then another thing happened to me, and it happened to me just last year as I write for Sync. And I was pitching to this particular library who accepted this particular song, and then they Shazammed it, and they came back to me as if I was perpetrating a copyright infringement because I took a sound, or rather a phrase. I used Studio One. I used a phrase from one of the keyboards, and it's just a little melody phrase that it plays. One key. It wasn't anything, but someone else had used it, and the Shazam caught it. And I thought, well, what do you do when it's in your DAW?
Yeah.
It's not a third-party loop. It's not a third-party sample that you purchase, but it came, encompassed.
Right.
What happens, and what, from a standpoint of someone who's creating the solution for it, what do you say to those type of models?
It becomes an issue of similarity. I mean, if they both kept the original sound that came out of the DAW with, a direct preset, a good example is one of the Gorillaz song. One of the most famous songs is literally like you said. They pressed one button, let the 8-bar phrasing run, and they sang on top of it. Now, you're saying, what if another artist does the exact same thing? It's arbitrage at that point. It defaults back to the person who created it for the DAW people. What do they decide to do? Would they like to split with these two artists or not? Depending on the contracts, maybe they already signed off and they don't have no decision in that, and it's the company. So it's really case per case. At that point, let's say that's the DAW and the manufacturers out of the question. It's just the artists that have the exact usage of the sample. If one used it in a more unique way, then it wouldn't be as similar. But if they both use it in its entirety, then they should split. They should split kind of each other's royalties.
Okay. So let me say this with respect to that. Then I agree with you. I agree with your answer. However, again, 100,000 songs being uploaded on a daily basis. Harry is not in his basement studio listening to see how many other people have that same DAW and has used that same phrase. How does he know? And
this is where AI is leveraged to embed, track, and report. There's so much going on out there that, like you said, manually doing it is completely absurd and out of the question. Even if you had to automate it with certain ways, it's still generic. Without naming certain current conventions from Google down, the current ways are beatable with a simple sped up or slowed down, and there's no direct IP information in the audio files themselves. So it relies on a comparison on a database, which we also do as an extra layer. But at the core, is there anything that follows the piece of audio? No.
Yeah.
This is where it allows, like you said, the solution to the person who cannot track in this ocean of music their works. We put together these algorithms and are going to get these right handshakes to create an end-to-end solution where the catalogs can see and detect what you're saying amongst that big volume.
Yeah, and if we get like it when you Jared, what I've had this conversation with a few people, they it's a very interesting topic. The biggest thing is 99% of anything we produce, from a sample kit to on the DAW, is stolen or ripped from another, we've been making music. We've been making music on top of music, on top of music, on top of music, on top of music. And by this point, there's no really current way to figure out how, and the problem it is the producers that are your everyday creators are getting the shift of it, like the stiff of it. And the 1% is kind of taking advantage of it. The good thing we're seeing, what we've seen, like being in the ASCAP AI cohort, talking to the RIAA, talking to Sony, everybody's scrambling because we don't know. Nobody really knows what to do. So it's going to take a lot of these technologies like us to kind of test and try to figure out, what's working. Will watermarking work to the highest degree? Will deepfake technology help? There's always going to be something that's going to come out. I think it helped, but it's early and it's hard to maneuver, I guess, or it's hard to swim in how big the sea of music is right now. And like you said, we had a friend who's a big YouTube producer promised he heard one of his samples in a major song. He Shazammed it, and sure as enough, it was in it. And
wow.
No recognition, no money, no acknowledgement. He reached out to the producer that produced the beat and was like, "Hey, I can prove to you that this is something that I produced, X amount, timestamp, everything." It still wasn't enough, and he doesn't generate enough money on his catalog to go after, to hire a $5,000 lawyer, to go pay $10,000 for forensic DNA of an audio file, we, us average producers and musicians don't have that opportunity, but technology is advancing fast to be able to open that up to labels, to catalog owners.
And that's if they're lucky, if they use clear enough phrasing that it can be matched, because there is a threshold that you might pass and then detection is out the window. This is why we also position ourselves to go on robustness and accuracy. That's another thing that is kind of missing right now when it comes to being able to know where and what and who. But that's something that is being looked at on all angles, the accuracy.
That's pretty amazing. So before we begin talking about the solution, which you have clearly developed, and we had offline sort of a demonstration, I would love for you to begin that. But I need to know, because you're both musicians, producers, when was the point when it became a passion to you? Was there something personal that happened? You talked about your friend, but was there an experience that you said, you know what? We have to develop something that is going to, stem the tide.
Absolutely.
The turning point for me personally, I'm sure Don has a different one, was the waiting time to receive a check from a label that we worked with 2 years ago at a music production side. Like we're waiting for a song to clear. We can't hear back from the labels. We don't know where the beat went. We don't know where the song went, what done with it. Then we find out it got released, and this famous celebrity released a song, and we we're still waiting on getting clearance and paid. It's been 2 years. That for me was like, dude,
and it all has to be.
Dude, I can Venmo you money in 5 minutes. There's no reason the labels and publishing and majors should have this issue.
The reasoning they give is usually because of the veracity again. Well, we got to make sure all the rights are signed, but 2 sheets of splits and all that. Well, that was a pain point itself. Again, there was no way to streamline who did what and how, and the ownership again was a mishmash.
Again, and we're pretty far advanced. We're now AI as a conversation. There's a good article on Billboard written by Kristen Robinson. She explained it like this. This generative AI phase that's going on, where people are worried about getting their likeness stolen, this honeymoon phase is over. The cool thing we're seeing now is technologies like us coming in to combat a lot of these, not in a negative or a positive way as well, but to make a clear playing field on like what's going on. Like, you could train my vocals, that's okay. I don't mind if you scrape the web and train my song, but let us know and let us see where it goes.
And that's the whole.
If you want that,
that's the whole opt-in, opt-out approach that certain platforms are taking right now. I find it's like the first layers, the first aid type of solution when it comes to that. Opt-in, opt-out is cool, but it's not the silver bullet, as we say, that's going to solve everything. What we see being the overall solution is a multiple overlap of niche innovations. Some companies that we wouldn't call superimposed competitors, but juxtaposed competitors, where their ends meet our ends. I'll give you an example where some of them scan and train models in order to detect by style, and what they do is they go against generative AI companies and prove to them that there's a certain amount of prompts that were generated that were related to training data. Now, where we come in is embedding the ownership information, tracking it and reporting it, and at the same time we have a real-time deepfake to ensure that on the platforms, anybody that's using even likeliness at the same time is the 2 other layers that go with them. We started seeing that as a trend with every companies and every other people in the same circle that are trying to get to the same mission, and it's kind of creating an ecosystem of multiple players that are going to create the blanket system that's going to solutionize the main issue with copyright management in the music industry.
Understood. Well, without further ado, can you give the elevator pitch to the 5-year-old that doesn't know what SoundSafe.ai is? Like, what is it? So we had the pain point, we developed the technology, and SoundSafe is going to blank.
Yeah. Excellent. So we saw a lot of issues with the current market of technologies of what people are doing, whether it was watermarking music to show IP provenance or deepfake technology in AI. We wanted to think about it more from like a real world experience. What are all the issues that we deal with when it comes to manipulating files and music, EQing, distorting, whether malicious or not,
pitch correction,
pitch correction, everything. There's a lot of you can do with it, and some of it's not malicious at all. Some of it is. We wanted to make sure and count those issues a part of what we're building. So at the root, it's a watermark. On the back end, or on the front end, you really won't see a lot of the technical jargon. It's going to be a drag and drop, simple feature, kind of like how you email and drop a file in. On the back end, whether it's a CVSV file of your catalog or a couple single songs or MP3s or WAV or FLAC, it just depends on how much you're dropping in. In the back end, we watermark. We do all the technical watermarking. We watermark it with multiple things. You fill out and check boxes. It's typically like your normal distribution. Who wrote it, where'd it come from, who produced it, how much percentage of each. Or we upload and it scans your current distribution, and we just automatically fill out the fields of that song, whether it's an old song or a song you need to fill out the information for.
It sums up into robust audio watermarking and real-time vocal deepfake detection to prevent piracy and or uncredited and authorized use of work.
So at its root, it's a dashboard. You log into your CD Baby account, you log into your Spotify for Artist account, you get to see, oh, my music played in Germany, Brazil, England, oh, my sample played in, the Spotify dashboards. I'm sure some of you might have seen them. Those analytics are so bare bones when it comes to technology. It's not even tracking accurate data whatsoever. So what we do is we track it to the most highest point of a sample loop. And what we do is we inject it with the watermark in ways where even if you try to remove it with an AI watermark, good luck.
We're training it on multiple different usages. So obviously everything that you would encounter in a studio and a productive creative manipulation, but there's also, file transfer stuff that happens to, the file itself. Just transferring it from device to another does stuff at the micro level. We're preparing for the future where we saw with, visual, Photoshop, things like this, people removing watermarks. It's not the first time somebody removed the little Shutterstock logo off a picture before uploading it.
Sure.
I'm guilty.
Sure.
Everybody's, and this is what we're accounting for with audio. Eventually they're going to get hip to, oh, it's no longer a beat tag or a vocal beat tag. It's a full-blown watermark. And they're going to have open source watermark removers, and everybody's going to have this as a cool little, tab or tool. We're accounting for that too. And the way we did that is a lot of our stuff mimics life itself. Now, everything we do is sound driven and AI leverage, but the way we conceive our architecture, the way we think about things is, how does nature do it?
Yeah.
So we looked at what is information that we're putting into an audio file. And at the bottom line of it is making sure that even in the smallest pieces, it's available. So even at the smallest chop or a kick or a one-shot sample that's taken out of a full song would contain the full water.
Yeah. Our goal and competitive edge, I would say, is robustness. We watched everybody, McCaff, a lot of these major companies build for the last few years in watermarking and in AI, and we just made sure that every single time someone came at us about, hey, what about this? What about this? We have an answer. Right now it's early. We plan on privately showing some demos, probably Q2 of next year, around April. If you're like a major catalog owner, if you're a major label, if you have lots of data in music, those who we're rolling the early out demo with,
Right.
Along with ASCAP and RIAA and some of these other companies we're talking to. Again, we come from the creative side, and we get the problems the most before these techie guys do, because I wasn't a tech guy. I was a musician first. So that's still, at the end of the day, the passion. It's just we need to be tech people right now because that's the lane that we got chosen to kind of help with this issue.
Well, tell me what has been then your experience on the tech end? I mean, did you just magically put on a software developer hat, or what did you have to go through?
So Don's background's been in tech. I've been obsessed with technology. We had to sit down and learn a lot about coding, what you can do, pre-AI, what blockchain can do.
It was a game of fundamentals. I mean, we're not the experts at the matter. I have a background in cybersecurity, so I did understand what the ins and outs of how it works on a global scale and a large scale for companies and enterprises. So I did see, okay, what kind of infrastructure are we looking at? What kind of monster are we looking to attack? John had a good fundamental by attending a lot of seminars like MIDEM and things like that. So when we did collaborate on songwriting camps, and at night we would kick the ideas of our pain points, and that led to, hey, this technology and that technology, and we're like, hey, that can really align and do stuff. We just dived in,
Yeah, I would tell you 2 years ago, I couldn't tell you much about Python and developing, or what a data scientist is, or what an endpoint is. All this technical jargon I couldn't have told you, but the last few years,
and we've been novel. I mean, my background in academics has definitely helped me to understand what research is as a point. So like we started piecing together what's out there, trying to not to overlap, or like, okay, that's already what's done, what's not done, what are the gaps. And that helped us design the outline, the beginning of what the framework would look like. And then we start, adding pieces. You add pieces, and then this is where we got to the point like, okay, that's good enough for now. Let's start building, the business aspect, the establishing channels, whether it be sales, collaborative, academic. And then we started acquiring staff. And that's when the actual development became the phase of materialization.
Yeah. So it would be, we saw the problems and pain points. We tried to do research. That was the first thing, like Don said, looking at what papers in Harvard, Princeton, Yale, all these crazy tech colleges, what were coming out in the audio space, not applying to music, some applying to music. And then from there, like Don said, finish the gaps, hired staff. We built all the architecture ourselves. Don's built everything himself as far as the architecture and how we wanted to run and what to do. And we hired, some amazing interns to help us build this. Shout out to John, our developer right now. He's an amazing data scientist out of Rutgers University. He's helped us piece a lot of this together and find out, like, is this possible? And we did it. It's just now it's training it to make sure we get it stronger and longer length of songs and audio. And then that stumbled upon being in music. I come from music my whole life, but like coming from studios and grinding, in the trap eras of hip hop in Chicago to EDM industries, you meet a lot of people, you build a lot of amazing friendships. Over the last years, me and Don have built some amazing connections. One of them is with our main advisor, which is Latavia Woodward. She's owner of Who's Got Next Music. Been in tech for about 20 years, but also she's the mother of Offset from the Migos hip hop group. So that helped us get even more insight on like what happened during, the last 15 to 25 years of hip hop and production and samples. And, we learned a lot from her. So shout out to Latavia and thank you for, what you've been helping us with. But again, seeing the pain points from an older generation of music was the number one thing we need to learn, because you have to learn from your history and your past. What problems happened with Napster? What problems happened with, LimeWire when we're ripping music? There wasn't no issue. There was ways to solve it. It's just the adaptation from the majors wasn't happening.
And we're always ready for the wild card, but what John made a strong point with understanding where it's coming from. That gives us an insight of what trajectory and what kind of momentum, what kind of velocity things moved, what slowed it down, what sped it up. And that gives us, a basic set of rules to go off of for ourselves, because it's so dynamic right now, the climate of what is happening. It's almost unprecedented. And people were, it was chaotic, if you remember the Napster days. And it was chaotic again during, the iPod.
Well, remember even the streaming days. Like I grew up, I was born in San Diego, California, 91, like from 91 to like 2000, I faintly remember like my father and all his friends selling tapes out of their trunk. It was a big thing in California at that time. That even moved to like me being younger and going to Venice Beach and having the CDs guys. Shout out to the CD guys in Venice Beach, man. If you've been to Venice Beach, you know these guys. These guys are hustlers. That all got ruined by streaming for these guys. These guys are just trying to make a living selling their music, and streaming ripped that from them. So they had to figure out new ways. And again, with new technology advancing, which is nice, we could listen to music easier. We can make music better. We can collaborate better. But what about business? What about my intellectual property? That's where the issue kind of came for us.
There's a heavy lag that happened, especially on that side of, the business side of things. Creativity advances, distribution advances and everything. What about, legalities? What about, how do we streamline who owns what?
Right. Yeah. Right. And who gets paid? I mean, because waiting 2 years, of course,
Yes.
Wait a minute.
That's the end goal.
That's excellent. Well, I certainly appreciate your passion and your wisdom that you bring to the knowledge of what you are learning and applying. Thank you so much for that. But I do want to know if, and by the way, you've made one other important connection, by the way, just want to add myself in that, because I have a heart for it from the standpoint of, I don't want to just figure it out or implement it. There's a why behind the why. And, I want to move toward that because especially in the generation that I serve, we're dealing with people who have been through the vinyl. I mean, vinyl is on a big comeback now, but we were recording and things were available on vinyl. And the simple thing like a record shop, you were talking about the guys on Venice Beach. We used to live at the record store. That was not only a university for us, but a place of distribution of how we as musicians network together. In fact, the music stores are losing, the brick and mortar music stores are going the way of the past. So you can order your guitar online through Sweetwater, God bless them. But, there's no networking there with meeting the guy. Oh, man, we met our bass player because he came over and was jamming in the music store. So much has changed. So, again, I appreciate your passion in that. I'm sorry.
Thank you. But that is evolving too. I mean, the agora, as you call it, where the meetups happen, and that factor, we're seeing emerging platforms that are trying to emphasize that and reinvigorate that spirit of collaboration and meeting and keeping the human in the loop. As much as this AI is rising, there's still that human factor that's going to be parallel to it.
Like, to sum it up, the human factor will always be in the loop. There's just something about music, the feeling that we get, that we make when making music, that you can already be, there's just things that artificial intelligence can't do. But I do want to warn people, in 20 years, it'll be hard to tell the difference between that artificially generated music and human because of how strong this technology is getting. I think we're a little far from it, but Don thinks it's around the corner. I'm more of like the musician, like, no, I'll always be able to tell it's fake. Don's comes from a technical background. He's like, give it a few months. These models that come out in AI music, you're never going to be able to tell it's not human. And,
Uncanny.
Let me ask a question with that, then. Let's just put a pitch. I don't want to, step on you, but again, from a generation ahead of you, then what happens? Okay, what is the significance? Not that you cannot tell what's fake, what's human, but specifically, what happens to this industry as we know it? Do you think the audiences will love and cherish and embrace the AI Whitney Houston as they did when she was with us? Do you think there will be that much of a yes, we love the AI Whitney Houston?
I would say yes and no. Yes, as in sense, it will get that eventually that big. But thinking about it like this, when you listen to today's hip hop, how do you feel? It ain't like the 90s and 80s.
There will always be an audience.
So there's always going to be a degree of separation. I grew up with the 80s and 90s hip hop. When I hear new school music, I don't connect with it. There's always going to be a separation of sound, I would say, and fans.
I'd say in the beginning, on a short-term effect, what would happen? It's going to fork. There's going to be a full lane of people that love and enjoy it. And there's going to be the middle ground, people that don't mind, enjoy both sides. And there's going to be the purists who really want to stick to just listening to human stuff. That's the short term. Now, as this becomes a norm, there won't be, the keywords like AI music or not. It's just going to be music. And eventually, there's going to be two types of listeners. I like to listen to music, which is most likely 99% AI generated, even from the studio, even if there's a human in the loop. But then there's going to be what we call grassroots, analog. It's going to create its own lane, I believe, an own niche where
we're going to be
certified music that is done without AI, played without AI, performed without AI from the human. And not because they don't like AI, it just becomes a new thing. It's a niche. And I think it could all coexist, and it's a churn of the days.
I think it's like, real quick, it's like again, the analog side of things. I prefer, if I was an EDM producer, they prefer to make things with different sounds and more digital because of the way digital sounds. Me, I'm more passionate about hearing a production from the raw instrument. So and then it's just, again, it's what you like. I think,
Right.
it's what you
And
personally like.
and in the future, the raw instruments are going to come from AI. We won't know the difference between that or not. But
Wow.
with proper authentication, with proper provenance, the listener, the audience has a choice now. They can pick whether they can enjoy or indulge in that, or continue with the human in the loop.
Okay, so that's the audience perspective, or what the crowd likes, the fan likes. Let's flip it on its ear from a business perspective. I mean, we know there's no such thing as a record company anymore. They can say what they want to say, but that's taking a big
artist and label services. I said artist and label services now. That's what they are.
But so one person can be the record company executive or record company owner, the artist and label service guy, and have 13 different AI artists, men, women, different genre, and just push it out, and then that's the music industry as we know it in a couple of months.
Just a new business model. I mean, it evolves.
For the older community, I don't mean it like that, but for people,
that's how we take it, though. I know you didn't mean it like that.
100%. I tell when I sensibilize people to what's going on. I don't say I don't want to. This is the new word, sensibilize. We're not trying to democratize or change anything or disrupt or nothing. We're sensibilizing people to what's happening. It's coming and it's happening now, regardless if you have a choice, if you like it or not. What I view it as is a tool. You can now make music faster, maybe better, but in other ways, AI can be used as tools. But again, remember when the calculator came out? Everybody was like, you're cheating, you're cheating, you're cheating. Now students have to have calculators.
And it don't make you any less smarter as a researcher or student to use one, whereas opposed to somebody who's doing it all by hand. So again, it's a question of being a purist or being too hard on yourself, or being innovative and then using whatever tools you may have at your disposal in order to augment yourself in any way without losing yourself.
I remember this is way back in 85, 86. Drum machines were becoming more prominent. Of course, the huge studios had them, but I mean, when we were able to actually pick one up. Yeah. As a drummer, one of the conversations we were involved in is is this thing going to displace us? But by God's grace, I was able to learn how to program it and still get work, so it didn't matter what the producer needed. If he needed the sticks or he needed the programming, I had the sensibility to carry it over. So I do understand it. I really do. And I do appreciate applying it. But it's just a matter of, as we move further and further to the human voice being so undetectable either way, it's just an amazing thing to me.
We need, like you said before, Jared, we need guardrails. We need more companies like us being just more trying to give a clear playing field. And I think they're coming. It's just, we've been denied technologies like us for the last 50 years. Watermarking's been around forever in music. They didn't want it back then, and they didn't know what to do with it. Now, compliance and regulation is forcing the top and the mainstream to comply because of so much generative music. So it's a good and bad thing, and we're all here. We've been here since we were young. We never left music, all of us. So there's a reason we're going to ride this out.
And they're dealing with a double layer of pressure, which is at first, Gen AI is pretty much taking away monetization from them, which from all the, the lawsuits that we know that are happening with the Gen AI companies. But like Johnny said as well, there's all that pressure coming from legislation that they're trying to stay compliant because they're billion-dollar entities that can't afford not to be.
Well, last thing I can say for the creative is just hold on. Yeah. Things are getting worked out. Right now, it seems like we're getting the shaft of everything.
People are at the wheel.
But there's things happening in the background, whether it's technology or, the higher up levels of music, performing rights to labels. Things are getting shaken up, in for good and for bad. But at the end of the day, for better transparency, I would say.
That's good.
I
That's
agree.
really good. Well, as we round the bend toward home, was there something that you could show us to just give us a couple of seconds of what's happening? Of course, everyone can go to SoundSafe.ai to your website, but is there something that you can show us now, just real quick,
Absolutely.
to help
No,
us?
I would run the over demo, but not do the before.
yes. We'll like. Then you want to explain it?
Sure.
You can cut this.
We can run a small demo of what our process kind of looks like, what it feels, how we process things. It gives a tiny little onboarding into what we're collecting, what we're trying to do as a mission, and how it kind of works on a very high level technical way without getting into too much.
The cool thing is, it's the demo we showed ASCAP early on, a year and a half ago, before we even got into the heavy development stages. You'll get to see what we're doing, the process, and the perceivability of how good it is right now and how better it's getting. It's a very informative demo. And again, if you have any questions, directly reach out to us. Jared knows we're very accessible. Email, Facebook, Instagram. We go hard on Instagram, so we're there. Email Hamad and Johnny at SoundSafe.ai. You're interested in getting involved, let us know. Reach out to us. We opened up some fundraising right now, just to kind of get things pushing while ASCAP and everybody's promoting us. We'd love to just, educate people. So let us know.
That's beautiful. Well, let's just run this demonstration now, and then we'll come right back, okay?
Sounds good.
SoundSafe.ai puts user experience at the forefront. Once all fields are set, a simple drag and drop function allows to begin the watermarking process. The user-friendly dashboard gives you access to accurate reports of detected usage of your watermarked audio. Behind the scenes, the SoundSafe.ai watermark model scans for watermarked segments and recombines detected watermark data. Data points are then extracted and matched to SoundSafe.ai databases. Watermark payload comprises of several pieces of information from ISRC codes to license type. Our watermark model leverages a multitude of algorithms to ensure that the encoded information is detectable and retrievable even after real-world scenarios where the audio is manipulated. SoundSafe.ai has a proprietary framework and architecture built in-house. Our development team is working diligently on the model's efficiency and performance. We aim to be the tip of the spear when it comes to our solutions. Our robust watermarking architecture stands strong against the current state of the competition, and it only goes up from here. And now, a short before and after demo of how imperceptible the watermark is once embedded into the host audio.
Let us alight here, said Athos. D'Artagnan will not have let. Let us alight here, said Athos. D'Artagnan will not have let.
Let's hear it again.
Let us alight here, said Athos. D'Artagnan will not have let. Let us alight here, said Athos. D'Artagnan will not have let.
This concludes the demo. Thank you.
What a powerful demonstration that is. And, the world is changing, but like Johnny says, it's changing in a good way. There's some good things that are going to be put to the forefront. There's going to be some bad things that need to be cleaned out. And I thank you guys, both of you, Johnny, Hamad, for being really at the forefront of what's happening. Now, at the beginning of the conversation, I did ask that you treat me like a 5-year-old, talk down to me and help me to understand. Was there perhaps a question that you usually receive in interviews like this, but I didn't know enough to even ask what it was? Was there something that you think is pertinent to leave with our listeners and viewers about SoundSafe?
Absolutely. Where does my stuff go? That's the number one thing that artists need to ask themselves, or even catalog owners, anything. Where does it go? Whether it be good or bad, like Johnny said, and you made a point on, it's not about nefarious or good or anything like that. We need to know at the highest level of accuracy the where, what, and how. And because not only does it tie down to, your basic level reasons, which is ownership, attribution, livelihood, but ethics.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. Any final words from you, Johnny?
Well, thank you, Jer, for everything. Shout out to Zach Lindenberg for making this amazing connection. I had to give him a shout out. Appreciate everything you do, Jer. Not only educating people, but staying informed. A lot of people don't bring in people like us because people are scared on what's coming. But it's going to get educated on what's going on.
That's absolutely right. If you want to be what we call an entrepreneurial musician, you have to know what's up. You absolutely do. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart, man. I really appreciate you guys because I can tell coming from the musical background that you have and having the passion for it is only going to push the technology into the place where it absolutely needs to be. I wish you nothing but absolute success, brothers.
Thank you.
I do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, blessings to you both. We're going to talk real soon, but that's going to do it for this episode of the EntreMusician Podcast. Johnny Stevenson, Hamad Dada, SoundSafe.ai. Go to it right now. Okay, just pause this and go to that right now so you can have it queued up and ready to go. This is absolutely technology that's going to help you. I want you to like this video. I want you to subscribe to our channel. I want you to share, tell everybody you know and 13 people you don't know that you get down with the EntreMusician. This is the type of content we're putting out, and it's only going to benefit you. My name is Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, but you know what's most important? So are you. We will see you again next time. God bless.